Good afternoon, everyone. This webinar will start in just 1 minute. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started in just 1 minute. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's national webinar, Partners in Service, Strengthening the Veteran Entrepreneurship Ecosystem, part of AEO's Equity and Opportunity for All series. We're thrilled to have you could join us as we recognize National Veterans and Military Families Month and celebrate the extraordinary contributions of veteran entrepreneurs to our economy and communities. This is also a time to reflect on the challenges that persist and the work ahead to ensure that veteran-owned businesses have the tools and support they need to grow. Today's conversation will highlight both the scale and influence of veteran-owned businesses, as well as opportunities to strengthen the ecosystem. At AEO, we know that entrepreneurship is a pathway to prosperity, and supporting veteran business growth is a vital part of building an economy that truly works for everyone. And before we begin, just a couple quick housekeeping notes. Today's session is being recorded, and we will share the link with all registered attendees afterward, and we will also share it on our website. Please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to submit any questions throughout the session. And if we don't get to your question during the session, we will follow up afterward. And then we'll also share resources in the chat throughout the event, including AEO's latest fact sheet on veteran entrepreneurship. But now, to officially open today's webinar, it's my pleasure to turn it over to AEO's President and CEO, Natalie Madeira-Cofield, for recorded welcome remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natalie Madeira-Cofield, and I am the President and CEO of the Association for Enterprise Opportunity, otherwise known as AEO. I'm delighted to welcome you to today's Equity and Opportunity for All webinar series. This series is a vital platform to elevate economic opportunity within the small business community. Each conversation brings together leading voices from research, practice, policy, and philanthropy to spotlight the challenges entrepreneurs face, and most importantly, the solutions that help them thrive. Since our founding in 1991, AEO has been the nation's leading voice for small business ecosystems. Our mission is simple yet powerful: to create economic opportunity for small business owners by ensuring access to the resources and systems they need to succeed. We represent and support more than 2,700 organizations across the country, from business support organizations to lenders, to provide advocacy, research, and capacity building resources. Over the years, AEO has helped shape policies and partnerships that have delivered more than $1 billion in resources to entrepreneurial ecosystems nationwide. Through initiatives like today's Equity and Opportunity for All, like our AEO Talks, our regional councils, and our Data to Dialogue research series, we bring stakeholders together to move from insight to action. These gatherings are designed not only to share knowledge, but to spark collaboration and create systems-level change that expands access to entrepreneurship for everyone. At AEO, we believe in the power of business ownership as a pathway to wealth, dignity, and community well-being. And we believe that every entrepreneur, regardless of race, gender, income, or background, deserves a fair shot at success. Thank you for joining us today and for being part of this critical work. I hope you leave not only with new insights, but with inspiration and ideas that you can take back to your communities. To get us started, it is my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Dr. Lori Smith, Senior Research Advisor at AEO. Lori brings deep expertise in small business ecosystems, inclusive entrepreneurship, and the data that frames today's conversation. Lori, over to you.
Thank you so much, Natalie, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us. So today we're here to talk about something that sits at the intersection of service, opportunity, and economic mobility, veteran entrepreneurship. So as we begin this conversation, I'll set the stage with an overview of where we are today when it comes to veteran business ownership. And then we will turn to the panel to discuss what's working and what needs to change to make the ecosystem around these entrepreneurs as strong as the people it serves. But first, you can find more data in our recently released fact sheet shown here. And for additional insights, please visit our research website at research.aeoworks.org. And we would really love to hear from you if you would like to talk more about the data, if you're interested in digging deeper into any of the findings we share today. You can contact us directly at research@aeoworks.org. So let's start with a snapshot of who our veterans are. Today, there are about 15.8 million veterans in the United States, roughly 6% of the adult population. And that number has been steadily declining for years as older generations age, and nearly half of all veterans today are over 65. But this is also a community that's changing. So today, women make up about 10% of all veterans, up from just 7% a decade ago. And the veteran population is becoming more diverse. So about 13% of veterans are Black and nearly 9% are Latino, with growing representation from Asian American and Native communities as well. So when we talk about veteran entrepreneurship, we're not just talking about the Vietnam cohort, we're also talking about a new generation, younger and looking to serve their communities in new ways. So again, while the veteran population is smaller and older than in past decades, it's also more diverse, and that shift matters. So this new generation of veteran entrepreneurs looks different, has different needs, and is also entering a very different economy. So what does this look like in business terms? Today, there are about 1.7 million veteran-owned businesses. Together, they employ more than 3.2 million people and generate nearly 1 trillion in annual revenue. So this is according to the most recent census data from 2022. National survey data from last year from the National Entrepreneurship and the Population Survey run by NORC, the University of Chicago. Their survey puts the estimate of veteran entrepreneurs at over 2 million, around 2.2 million, which represents 9% of all US entrepreneurs, which is more than the veteran share of the population. So today, as in the past, we do see veterans being more likely to be entrepreneurs than others. And while most of these firms are small, just like most or almost all businesses in the US are small, these businesses are everywhere in construction, transportation, healthcare, and if you've local restaurants, like if you've ever driven past a business with a veteran-owned decal in the window, that's part of this backbone of local economies. And in fact, veterans are especially strong in fields like construction, professional services, manufacturing, and retail, sectors that depend on technical skill and reliability. And then we also see geographic patterns. The largest number of veteran-owned firms are in California, Texas, Florida, and Virginia. But states like West Virginia and Alabama actually have the highest shares of veteran ownership relative to all businesses. So veteran entrepreneurship is truly a national story. It's rural and urban, and both high tech and hands-on. But as much as we celebrate that impact, we also have to look at what's shifting underneath. So a generation ago, veterans were significantly more likely to own businesses than non-veterans. But business ownership started to decline more recently. And in 1996, they made up over 12% of all business owners. And then today, that share in census data is closer to about 5%, so cut by more than half. And so partly this is because of this demographic shift that we mentioned. So the overall veteran population is getting smaller and older, but it's also about pathways. So fewer young veterans in more recent years have been choosing entrepreneurship as their post-service path compared to previous generations. But yet that has shifted more recently in the post-pandemic period. So during the pandemic recovery, we saw a resurgence in entrepreneurship rates among all veterans, among all groups, but also especially minority-owned veteran businesses, which grew by more than 22% in the post-pandemic period. So again, while the overall number of veteran-owned firms has maintained its population share, the community itself is becoming more diverse and more dynamic and reflective of the country it serves. So what stands in their way? Well, veterans, of course, have the mindset and the work ethic, but often lack the same resources, networks, and capital that civilian entrepreneurs are able to build over time. So in survey after survey, the number one barrier that we hear from veteran business owners is access to capital. Nearly 4 in 10 say that's their biggest challenge. And then last year, 1 in 3 reported not receiving the full amount of financing that they applied for. Some leave the military without a long credit history or without assets they can leverage as collateral. And the second major barrier is networking and business know-how. Veterans often come out of service with deep leadership experience, but limited exposure to marketing, accounting, or customer acquisition. So they may not have been mentors or in their industry, or may not have the same connections to investor networks. So while we know that veterans have the discipline and drive, the ecosystem around them isn't always built to make the most of it. So where do we go from here? Veterans, are creating jobs, generating wealth, and strengthening communities across the country. And so the challenge is to make sure that every veteran who wants to start or grow a business has the capital, coaching, and the community that they need to succeed. So that's the conversation that we'll have today about how to take these strengths and turn them into systems. So to help us explore this further, I am thrilled to turn it over to our panel, a group of incredible leaders and advocates. It is my pleasure to introduce our panel moderator, VR Small, a powerhouse in the veteran entrepreneurship space. VR is a Navy veteran, experienced motivational speaker, moderator, and educator with a history of success, driving social and economic innovations across our nation. She is the founder and CEO of the Veteran Women's Enterprise Center, a national initiative empowering entrepreneur women associated with the military to scale successfully. Recognized nationally by the Department of Veteran Affairs, Center for Women Veterans as a trailblazer, Women Veterans Leading the Way, VR is a courageous promoter of women helping women through sisterhood in action. VR believes in the power of empowerment and strives daily to empower her sisters in arms to pave their own path to success by providing access to the resources they need to succeed. VR, over to you.
Thank you, Lori. And thank you, AEO, for putting this together. I, too, am excited to be a part of this as we move into November, which is National Veterans and Military Family Month. And we're closing out what is traditionally National Veteran Small Business Week and leading up to Veterans Day. So this is an exciting time to really look at and highlight our veteran entrepreneur community. One of the things I want to do is have our panelists introduce themselves. And what I want you all to do is tell us a little bit about your journey into your position before we start talking about your organizations. And Charlotte, why don't you lead us off?
Thanks, VR. Hi, everyone. Great to be here today. My name is Charlotte Creech, and first and foremost, my why and really the story behind my career journey is my husband, Andy. He served in the Air Force, and I met him right as he was transitioning out of active duty, but he was still in the reserves and got called up for a combat deployment. And so as he was going through his own personal transition and trying to figure out first, what does life after the military look like? And then also what benefits do I have to help me succeed in my post-military career? I was really the one that by default became his career counselor and advisor and was trying to help him problem solve through a lot of those challenges he was facing. So I have a business background. I eventually left my job in corporate America and naively decided to become a tech startup CEO, first to solve my husband Andy's problems with his transition and again, help him understand how his GI Bill benefits could help him with education and then transition to a career after that. And in the process of building that initial startup, first I experienced my own challenges, but beyond that, I learned that it wasn't just Andy that had this experience. There were thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other service members and veterans that experienced similar difficulties. And so really building that community and ecosystem, I went from being a startup CEO to then leading a nonprofit called Patriot Boot Camp, which helped other veterans and military spouses start scalable technology companies. And then after that, I got recruited to go lead corporate innovation at USAA and kind of take all of the learnings from being an entrepreneur and CEO and apply them to innovation and product development on the corporate side of the world. So did that for about 6 years. And then just a year ago, I transitioned back to the nonprofit space. And my day job today is the Chief Program Officer at Hire Heroes USA.
I love your journey, Charlotte. Matthew, can you tell us a little bit about how you arrived here?
Yeah, sure. Thank you also for allowing us the opportunity to be here. It's great to see everyone. Good to see you again, VR. I'm an Army veteran myself, and after I got out of the Army, I had the opportunity to go and work in what I call the post-military prosperity space, starting with GI Jobs magazine as a writer and assistant editor, and we also published Military Spouse magazine. And in 2009, I was given the opportunity to edit Entrepreneur magazine. And I didn't know anything about running a business, and so I kind of devoured everything I could find around that and went to all the small business resources that were available, some specifically for vets, some that are just generally there. And I realized I didn't need to know everything about running a business. I needed to be able to tell veterans how to leverage their veteran status as a value to their customers and what opportunities were available to them as veterans and business owners. So over time, a lot of the corporations like USAA that were advertisers in the magazine mentioned to us that they didn't necessarily want to support a media vehicle that educated vets about entrepreneurship as much as they wanted to have an organization that certified the ownership, operation, and control of veteran-owned businesses for the private sector. And so I'm sure that we'll talk a little bit more around that when we get into the questions and how that ties into what we're doing now. But I was able to successfully recruit a corporate governing board of directors and get a trademark on certified VBE and apply to the IRS and launch Navoba as a nonprofit certifying body for the private sector back in 2017. And so here I am. So I'm looking forward to talking a little bit more about that.
I can't believe that, Matthew. We started in the same year. What a journey. That's awesome. And Gus, can you tell us a little bit about how you arrived at People Fund?
Sure. I hope you hear me correct. Or do you hear me loud enough? Good.
We can hear you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here and share a little bit of what we do at People Fund. My career started in the field, started in 2002 when I did an internship with a CDFI in San Antonio. And I fell in love with the CDFI field and community development, and there was no look back. Since then, I joined to other CDFIs, nonprofits and for-profits in roles of CFOs, sales, and most recently, CEO of one nonprofit CDFI and one for-profit CDFI. When I was invited to join People Fund, this was in 2019. One of the programs of this organization was focused on veterans, and it really called my attention. The focus on veterans and also the opportunity to give back to those that have given so much for this country. So how could I say no to that opportunity, right? And since then, we've been having a blast here at People Fund, and looking forward to share a little bit of what we've done, particularly for veterans in Texas.
That's awesome, Gus. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. Now, of course, we're here as service partners. So I definitely want to hear a little bit about what your organizations actually do to support the veteran entrepreneur ecosystem. Why don't we start with you, Gus?
Myself?
Yes, about People Fund. How does People Fund support
Sure.
the veteran entrepreneur ecosystem?
Here in Texas, we have programs that provide financial assistance and technical assistance. So we provide business coaching, free business coaching for veterans that want to start or grow their business. And then we provide also financial assistance, mainly in the form of grants. We are an SBA lender. We are a CDFI, and of course we do People Fund loans. Our rates for veterans are concessionary. A veteran can get a loan at an interest rate of 5% and no more than 7% a year. So it's a beautiful program that we have. 1 out of 5 of our clients is a veteran. We also partner with 12 other CDFIs across the country in what is called the Veteran Loan Fund. And we will talk about that later, but it's also a beautiful initiative that People Fund takes part of, with others, of course, in helping veterans from coast to coast.
That's awesome. And Gus and I had the opportunity to work together this year on the Veteran Small Business Accelerator. I'm sure he's going to talk about that a little bit more later, so I don't want to steal his flame. But that was an awesome opportunity. And Matthew, can we hear a little bit more about what you are doing in the veteran ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. So our significant core competency is issuing the certification. So we have, like I mentioned before, the trademark on the certified veterans business enterprise, but also the certified service disabled veterans business enterprise credential for those companies that are working with large corporations. And that's patterned to be in as many ways as possible to replicate the WBE, which is the Women's Business Enterprise Certification, and the MBE certification, which is the Minority Business Enterprise Certification for the women's and the ethnic minority business communities, respectively. And so we're proud to serve as the veterans representative on the National Business Inclusion Consortium, which includes our friends at the National Minority Supplier Development Council, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, amongst other diverse certifying community partners and business partners. In addition to that, we work to make sure that we are helping our veterans be competitive. So we concluded our first, actually, I'm sorry, our second veterans training program. So there's never really been any investment to teach veterans about the opportunities for them to compete in the private sector. So there's billions of dollars invested to teach vets about becoming entrepreneurs, which is wonderful. Most of it, if not exclusively all of it, tells them to sell to the government because is an opportunity to sell to the government. And it's created a knowledge gap, and vets aren't really aware of this opportunity in the private sector. So, one, we advocate to train them on how to learn about this opportunity in the private sector. And we've worked with our friends at the National Veterans Institute for Procurement for a program we call VIP Corporate. So they have various programs, VIP Start, VIP Grow, and things for vets to learn how to compete and grow their businesses. All of their other programming, however, has been once again focused in the public sector and government contracting. So we've graduated the first two cohorts. So we have 104 vets across 27 states that have actually taken formalized procurement readiness training to compete in the private sector marketplace. And we've also done events and networking events. We have our Operation Matchmaker. We did just this Monday, since this is National Veteran Small Business Week, we had our first ever veteran to veteran National Matchmaker event. So we figured the entire country's talking about veteran business owners this week. Let's talk to each other. Business owners buy things all the time, and so they should buy from veterans when they can. And so I don't want to take too much time because I'm sure I'll talk about some of the other programs that we do specifically as they relate to the themes of this conversation too. So we do an awful lot, and we're always looking to do more, especially through collaboration and partnerships, because we know that there are plenty of groups out there that do incredible work and do things really well. And so we want to make sure that we connect and collaborate more so than reinvent.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, Matthew. I hear veterans come to us all the time and they want to do government contracting. And one of the things we say to them is you have to diversify your offerings and who you're doing business with. So I am excited to hear that you all are training them how to engage the corporate community and how to engage each other. I'm another proponent of B2B. Like there's money everywhere. Don't leave any of it on the table. And there's so much business to be done with each other. So thank you for everything that you guys are doing. Charlotte, can you tell us a little bit about how Hire Heroes plays in this ecosystem?
Sure. We are a nationwide 501c3 nonprofit. We've been around for 20 years. So we've worked with thousands of veterans and military spouses over the course of that time. And we're really proud of some of our outcomes. We've helped place over 110,000 veterans in jobs and in employment. Our core mission and service delivery is focused on employment transition. And so on average, we have about 30 to 40,000 veterans and spouses register with us and come to us for help every year. We provide personalized one-on-one coaching. So we have a team of employment transition specialist coaches, and they deliver one-on-one coaching through every stage of the career journey and at any point in somebody's life. So whether you're getting ready to transition or you recently separated from the military, or say you've been out in the on the private side for a number of years and you're finding yourself 10 or 15 years down the road suddenly wanting to make a career pivot, We work with them at any stage of their career. Now, the majority of our clients do come to us asking for help and connections with traditional employment. So really, whether it's getting into defense contracting or really working for somebody else. But what's interesting is that on average, at any given time, roughly 3 to 5% of our clients do express an interest in small business ownership, entrepreneurship, or even franchise ownership. And then we also have about a 7% of our user base that is interested in consulting. So that could be consulting like a management consultant, or it could also be consulting in terms of sole proprietorship. So we can help anybody at any stage in their career and really with any of those needs. But specifically on the business ownership or the entrepreneurship side, some of the services that we provide, we've got a volunteer network of 1,500 volunteers across the country that have raised their hand and dedicate their time to help mentor and coach. So at any point in time, if somebody says, I'm interested in starting a business in this industry or this field, and I want to talk to somebody who might be my customer on the other side, or perhaps has lived the journey that I'm trying to pursue, we can set them up with a one-on-one mentoring session there. And then certainly we have correct connections to employers, and we host a variety of webinars and other educational and information sessions to help bridge the gap either to traditional careers and employment, or again, potential partnerships with small business ownership and supplier diversity.
That's awesome, Charlotte. And I do want to share just a little bit about the VWEC for those that would like to get connected. Our mission is to empower entrepreneur women associated with the military to successfully scale. And we do that through our strategic growth programs. I have to shout out to our graduates. Last night, all of our programs graduated. Our Dallas Strategic Growth Accelerator is a 4-month program. Those ladies get over 100 hours of technical assistance. And our next level business transformation NLBT, those ladies have a 6-month co-working cohort. They all graduated last night. One of our fellows saw a 57% increase in her business during the program. And another one of our fellows has transitioned a failing program to what will be next year a $1.5 million program. So we focus on growth, and those ladies that are interested in learning more about how they can grow their business, that's our lane. So while we're talking about lanes and trends, Matthew, you might know a little bit about this, and if not, anybody else can jump in. But I was reading somewhere that over one half of U.S. privately held businesses with employers have owners over 55. Are we seeing a similar trend in the veteran entrepreneur community?
Yeah, the cliche that you hear a lot is the silver tsunami, right? And so there are, and with the military community, there tends to be generational, um, I guess, communities. And so the Vietnam folks, those that served in that community, they're part of that, right? So many of them are in their 70s now, and it is definitely something that we're seeing as a trend. And but it also creates an opportunity. And so one of the programs that we've launched recently is our succession planning program. We would love nothing more than to see successful veteran-owned companies stay veteran-owned and empower a new generation of veteran entrepreneurs to be successful through acquisition. And it's radically more likely to be successful as a business owner to acquire a business with successful customer relationships. And it's actually something that's a win in 3 directions, because the business owners that are selling their companies, they get to do something. Well, they've created something of tremendous value in that business, so they get to be compensated fairly for what they've created as a value. So it's not a charity under any stretch of the imagination. But instead of just handing their business off to a competitor or somebody else that's going to get rid of the people that have worked there and all the things that are legacy and people that become family over the years, and so much of the culture of what that company was able to do, that could be preserved if they transition it over to somebody who's going to share some of those same values and ownership with a veteran. And like I mentioned before, that person acquiring that business has a greater likelihood to be successful. And then for our corporate allies, those companies that are very dedicated to working with veterans in their supply chains, if they get a supplier they like to work with, they like to go back to them. So once you get your foot in the door, if that customer experience and that supplier experience stays the same and the ownership changes, and they also get to continue to take credit for certified veteran spending, then the corporate customers win in that regard too. So yes, it's definitely a trend that's out there, but I think it's a trend that's created an opportunity. And the thing that created a sense of urgency for me is I learned recently that most of the business owners that are looking to retire, their plan is to sell their business. Most of them don't know how to do it. They don't know how complex it's going to be, how long it's going to take, and they don't truly understand the ways to maximize that valuation to get what the business truly can be worth in that sale. And so we're working to get as many of those business owners identified that want to transition out in the next 3 to 5 years and get them into dedicated training on how to maximize that valuation so they can get the value what they truly deserve to as that nest egg for their retirement.
That is exciting, Matthew. I was reading a couple of articles around mergers and acquisition. It is definitely a way for businesses to grow. And with the trend that we're seeing, we definitely want to see those businesses continue to stay in the market, to stay in their communities, and to stay veteran owned. So excited to hear you guys doing that. We launched our best program last year, Build to Sell or Excel. And it's the same concept. You know, are we going to keep this business, or are we going to grow this business a little bit more? So, love to talk to you more about what you guys are doing. Of course, we're all partners here. Charlotte, what are you guys seeing over the last 10 years as it relates to entrepreneurship? Maybe those people that are in the workforce looking to possibly transition. What does that look like in your particular arena?
Sure, two parts to that. One, in terms of just my work at Hire Heroes USA, an interesting thing that I've learned is like there is a lot more fluidity in somebody's career journey today and age. So it's really not one or the other. It's at what point in my life or what phase in my career might I be more or less willing to take risk, or might I be more interested or less interested in working for myself versus working for someone else. And so when we look about, when we look at skills translation and talent and just personal agency over one's career life cycle, it is not uncommon to see folks transition. Maybe they go work for an employer first, get their feet wet, and understand a little bit about corporate or a particular industry, and then it sparks an idea and they spin off and become a sole proprietor or a business owner, or vice versa. So there's many different pathways to one's career journey, and they can include both traditional and non-traditional career opportunities. And then the second thing I'll mention is coming from my unique perspective, really as a former tech CEO and working so much in innovation and AI and product development for disruptive technology. Something that I've witnessed a really big change from when I started my first business 15 years ago is, back then, if you wanted to build a SaaS company or any kind of technology enabled business, you really needed to have an engineer as part of your founding team. And a lot of folks have high technical aptitude, but they aren't necessarily developers or coders, or have the ability to do the engineering programming themselves. And so one of the big challenges starting out was, how do I find a technical co-founder if I'm going to be the CEO and I have the business strategy or the industry expertise? But now with just the development of AI and other low code or no code tools, the cost to starting a business and also the access to tools that enable somebody really without a technical foundation or an engineering background have really transformed how quickly you can start a business, have reduced the cost of capital, or the cost of capital needed to start a business, and just in general kind of opened up this world of entrepreneurship to a group of individuals that previously probably wouldn't have been able to start a business in the technology sector. So that's really exciting.
Absolutely. And again, last night we saw a lot of our pitches mention in their team that they had their AI virtual assistant. So a lot of business owners, particularly solo business owners, are jumping into that AI and using AI to automate and really enhance their businesses so that they can spend more time in sales instead of spending a lot of time in these back office strategies. So definitely taking off, and I see a lot of opportunity for business owners in this arena. Gus, staying on trends, Lori mentioned capital still a big concern for our business owners. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you've seen over the last decade, what's working, and what People Fund is doing to support veterans as it relates to accessing capital?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that is loud and clear is awareness, right? And there's an increasing awareness about supporting veterans over the last years. And fact of a matter of fact, we are talking about veterans here today, right? Um, there's a lot of organizations. There are a lot of organizations that provide excellent support to veterans, VBOC centers, your organization here in Texas, and what is lacking is the networks, right? Networks that these organizations are right now coming together. An example of that is the partnership that we did recently with University of Texas at Arlington VBOC Center, with Veteran Women Enterprise Center, and People Fund in the first military connected accelerator. But you're absolutely right. Every year, between 150 and 200,000 of veterans return to civil life. Out of them, 50,000 or so want to start a business, and they express interest in that, but only less than 10,000 do that, right? And the think about the magnitude of the numbers, the uh, the demand that goes unfunded, right? The number of businesses or entrepreneurs that go unfunded, veteran entrepreneurs unfunded, is $100 million a year. So if you add to that those that are underfunded, then we are talking about billions of dollars. And that's opportunity lost for the country, for our communities. So yes, there's still a lot of work to do. There are few sources of capital exclusively targeted to veterans. The Veteran Loan Fund, which is the network that we are part of, is one of them. And here in Texas, People Fund has always had a program devoted for veteran entrepreneurship. And as I mentioned before, we provide financial assistance and technical assistance. And more recently, with the Military Connected Accelerator, we provide loan capital and education to veterans and military spouses. We are going to talk later about the specific challenges that they face, but overall, what we are trying to tackle is the lack of capital and the things that any entrepreneur doesn't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. So we providing an MBA or a program that takes forever, right? Is not our goal. Our goal is to provide a very quick solution, right? A very quick curriculum that highlights what they need to know. And one of those items is creating a business plan. And that's the start. That's how we help them get started. And they can take this business plan anywhere. The partnership that we did with you, VR, and the University of Texas at Arlington VBOC Center, it was beautiful. Each of us provided a part of the curriculum. They did the profit mastery section. You did the marketing and sales, and we did the business plan, right? And off you go. We hit a market that was untapped there, right? A particular need we addressed, and that's the first of many. That's the first of many. We are planning to continue this in next year and hopefully expand it at the national level. So let's see how that goes.
So Gus brought up a really good point. So I'm going to jump around a little bit here. And I want to talk a little bit about the importance and the value of partnerships within the ecosystem. And Matthew, I'm going to circle over to you. And I'd love for you to share any, I know you talked about VIP, but any other partnerships you guys have, and the importance of having these partnerships and not reinventing the wheel and becoming duplicate, but really filling in the gaps in the ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. So that one of the things that I'm most proud of is our ability to collaborate with other organizations in this space. Because like I said, we don't want to reinvent something. We don't want to have to compete with an organization that's doing something well. And I guess you brought up a really interesting point. When I started the whole process to get Novoba approval as a nonprofit organization back in 2015, there were 43,782 veteran-related nonprofits in the country. Now, that's not other institutions like universities that have programs to serve, things like that. That's actual veteran nonprofits. And so why do we need another one? What else can we do differently? And so there's no shortage of resources, which is outstanding. But I think, once again, Gus brought up an outstanding point in that it's almost the opposite of no resources. There's just so many, but nobody knows about them. And so how do you connect vets to the right resources that are going to be the best ones? So we're working right now with another organization called the National Veteran Small Business Coalition. They help vets win government contracts. They'll have 2,000 veterans at their Veteran Entrepreneurship and Training Symposium this summer, or this coming summer, excuse me, in New Orleans. And for those business owners that have found tremendous success at selling to the federal government in the public sector marketplace, they're finally understanding the value of diversification, because things are going to look a little different in government contracting as it stands. So they're very much interested in that. And we still want to be able to help them grow and leverage their veteran status for customers that want to work with them. So that's one example of a partnership there. I mentioned the National Veterans Institute for Procurement and what we're working on with the VIP corporate program there. We also have the Institute for Veterans and Military Families on our board of directors as a partner organization. And so we work with IVMF. The Bunker Labs used to be an independent organization that became part of the IVMF, and we support their programming. So it's just an example of what we do with the IVMF folks. For instance, Walmart came to both organizations and said, hey, we'd like to get as many veteran-owned companies in our stores as possible. We have an open call event that they do at their headquarters in Bentonville. And so we collectively worked with the IVMF. We had 70 some veteran owned companies we started with that we got a chance to get to the road to open call. There was an event that was done in Austin, Texas this year to get them positioned to be able to go. 10 of those companies actually got an invitation to go to open call, which is very, very rare to actually get that. I mean, very few businesses even get a chance to go to the mothership and pitch. And so out of that number, we had every one of them got a deal. So 7 got a golden ticket. So their products will be on Walmart shelves in the next year. And a few of them got internal orders where they're going to buy their products to give out to veteran resource group folks and veteran employees that work there, or Walmart.com orders. And so, and it's also a great way for us to get some more visibility around that veteran-owned logo. So we very much ripped off and duplicated what the women-owned business community has done with that women-owned logo you see on retail packaging. And so we have a very similar logo, so you can identify certified veteran-owned businesses that are selling those products on retailers' shelves. And so that's just a couple examples of the different ways that we've been able to work together with other communities and make sure that, because the one thing that we can do exclusively is make sure that these companies are who they say they are. They're veteran owned and they have that qualification. So everybody else that's doing wonderful things, we always want to make sure that we're just keeping that surety around their eligibility and their veteran status, especially for those customers that want to report any successes they have at working with these companies as certified veteran spend. Then that's where that credential really comes in handy. But we also understand that not every business needs to get certified by Novova, but we still want to see those business owners be successful, even if it's not with us and what we do specifically. And so that's where the collaboration is so important.
That's absolutely awesome, Matthew. Congratulations to you guys and to those veteran owned businesses. We want to know more about them as we continue this journey. Charlotte, as you noted, you guys really focused on employment, but you also still have individuals that come to your organization that are interested in entrepreneurship. How do you work with the ecosystem to support their interests and get them connected to the right organizations to fulfill their dreams?
Thanks. Ecosystem is the key word there, VR. I love that you use that word. And Matthew, I wholeheartedly support everything you were saying. I cringe anytime somebody comes to me and says they want to start another nonprofit. Like, love the spirit and intent, but we don't really need another nonprofit or another point solution. We need to build strong, effective ecosystems. And that really comes back to referrals and partnerships. And so at Hire Heroes USA, one thing that I didn't mention in my intro, but a big part of our coaching process and system is that we do have over 190 referral and training partners. So as part of that evaluation process and kind of understanding where is the individual today versus where are they trying to go with their career or their startup, and what are the gaps in between and how do we help them close those gaps. We have all of these partnerships with other experts in the system. So they can be organizations like the ones on this call today. Bunker Labs, IVMF are great partner organizations. And so really understanding, here's our core expertise, and then here's all of the support services or the wraparound providers that if you have a particular training need or you're looking for a specific certification to be relevant to a particular industry, or if you want to go in a certain direction and you need additional hard skills or soft skills, we can refer out to those other program partners, and we've vetted that community and network. So we know that anyone that we refer to is somebody that we trust. We've on an annual basis, we kind of vet the services that they provide, and we also request that they provide data back to us about how they're handling the clients that we've referred to them. So again, really it's about ecosystem building and partnerships, and that connectivity, because no one organization can do everything well. And we don't want to create more noise and confusion for those that we're trying to serve by saying figure it out, or adding another solution to the market without clarity on how all of these pieces fit together. So again, just I can't emphasize enough how important that those connected partnerships are, and having those referral networks both into somebody else's service and then back to you depending on what that individual needs at that point in time.
That's awesome. I'd like us to take a moment and do a little bit of forward thinking. So, looking into the next 5 years, are there any innovations or policy changes from your perspective that you think would make a major impact in the veteran in entrepreneur system that would really, be a change maker for our ecosystem? And that's posed to all of you. So you can chime in where you feel like, you have some value to add.
Yeah, I'll jump on that one first. So one of the things that we've done, we have a program on our website is called the State Tracker. So we look at all the different states that have any type of programs that are favorable for veteran-owned businesses at that state government level. And so the Texas Hub program, for instance, including Vets as part of that back in whenever they did that in 2009 or something like that. So what I've seen when it comes to public policy that's around veteran-owned businesses, a lot of times it is we're going to spend X amount of dollars with veteran-owned businesses. So the very first law was the DVBE program, the Disabled Veterans Business Enterprise Program in California in 1989. That was the precursor to the federal law, which was passed in 1999, both of which set a policy that says we're going to spend X amount of taxpayer dollars with this company. As we've seen with legal challenges to the 8A program or anything else, anything that actually restricts competition by favoring one community is inherently vulnerable to legal attack from other folks, because if this is for me and I'm not that, then this discriminates against me. And so, and there are certain political philosophies that don't necessarily like the idea of saying we're going to restrict the competition and force taxpayers or any buyers to go in a certain direction, even if it's for people that have sacrificially served our country. So what I've been working on is to try to get policy that incentivizes the private sector behaviors. So when we have corporations that are working with these veteran-owned companies, if they can get a tax incentive, for instance, for a percentage of what they're spending with certified veteran-owned companies, they get a small percentage of that that gets waived as a portion of their corporate tax rate for the state government or the federal government, for instance. And what that really does, so we're not saying that we're restricting competition, quite the opposite, rather. In the private sector, and it's also true for government, but there are no set-asides that a corporation says we're going to spend X amount of money. USA would never say we're going to spend, they're going to buy the best deal to drive shareholder value in a positive way. And as much of that can be steered toward veterans, all the better, or military spouse-owned businesses or whatever. And so, but what this would do would incentivize private sector corporate behaviors to ensure that veterans are get first seat at the table to compete. They still have to win. They still have to be the best, the fastest, the cheapest, the safest, the most innovative, whatever it is. They still have to be able to win that in an open, fair competition, but they're given the first seat at the table to compete because now there's, even if it's just a meager incentive for the corporate customer to make sure that, well, let's get some of these folks to be considered first. And so it's a fresh way of looking at how do we have public policy that impacts private sector corporate behaviors that really doesn't do anything to restrict activity and competitiveness.
I like it. I like it. And hopefully we do keep our status at the administrative level because as you know, and everybody on this platform, our veterans took out time from growing and doing all the things that everybody else does. So this is just a way of giving them an opportunity to catch up and to be in the game. But you know, we'll see how things transition down the road. Would any of the other panelists want to talk about any innovations or policy changes that you think might have a major impact on the ecosystem?
PR, I'd love to build off of Matthew's response actually, and I'll just caveat it by saying this is my own personal opinion, not necessarily any advocacy or policy work that I'm involved in with my employer. But something I observed working in corporate America is that there was a huge investment in intellectual property development, but a lot of times that intellectual property would sit and it never saw the light of day. So there was a real gap of these large organizations have patents and or technology that could be very applicable to starting businesses, but they don't necessarily have the resources or the desire to commercialize it themselves. And then on the flip side, you have the veteran community and they are incredibly skilled. They have strong technology aptitude. They're comfortable with ambiguity. They're resilient. They are problem solvers. They're great team builders. But a lot of time, and a lot of times, there are individuals that just don't want a traditional career. They don't want to sit at a desk all day, but they don't necessarily separate from the military with that brilliant idea and the right traction to start a business. So it was always frustrating to me, and I was always looking for how can we incentivize, along with Matthew's call to action, like how can we better incentivize policies for private sector to motivate large organizations and corporations specifically to facilitate technology transfer and match the intellectual property that they own but have no ability to commercialize with these veteran entrepreneurs that would have all the right skills and aptitude to be successful business owners but might need a little bit of a head start or just the right business idea and opportunity with some patents behind it to take it to market. So I would love to see some sort of policy or just federal incentive programs to motivate the matching and the marrying of those opportunities.
That's very interesting, Charlotte. Love to hear more about that, and hopefully, there's someone listening that can pick up that charge and say, "Okay, let's see how we can pilot this and see if this works," because it's extremely interesting. Gus, did you want to chime in before I move on?
Yes, I would like to add. Right now, we don't know what's going to happen with the CDFI fund. We know that it has counted with bipartisan support, so in some shape or form, I'm hopeful and confident that it will continue. But one of the things that we advocated for is to add veterans and military and veterans military spouses, sorry, as a target population of the CDFI fund. And it's not considered yet targeted population. And of course, doing so will help channel more funds from banks into veteran supported activities, right? Remember that when banks support CDFIs, they get CRA credits, right? And right now, there are certain target populations in which banks and other organizations support CDFIs. If we add veterans as such, that would be a great addition in my view. Of course, I don't talk for other CDFIs, right? But People Fund has been advocating for years for that. And then on the private sector, I would say that the availability of funds specifically for veteran businesses, that would be a huge help if paired as well with the grant support. And again, there is a balance, right? But in the work that we do, we subsidize part of the risk that supporting these businesses involves. And it would go a long way to have that type of support in combination, right? Right now, we do have to go on one side on grants and on a different side for loan capital. If we get that combination, that would be a very powerful way to get funding and support to veterans that need so much.
I'm glad you brought up funders, Gus, because as a smaller nonprofit, not under a university, kind of like IBMF, we need to speak to our funders and really need to make sure that they understand that multi-year funding is very important. The business community is extremely different than some of the other nonprofits where you may have a food pantry or a homeless program where you can get a lot of volunteers that don't have to have a particular level of technical knowledge. But in the business arena, most of the people that are working with us are working with business owners, and this is their lifeline. This is how they pay their bills. And so the type of education and the type of resources they need to bring to the table is a bit different. So we definitely need to make sure that we let the funding community know and understand that there are differences in nonprofits, and that if we want continuity and sustainability, that has to be also echoed in how funding is distributed, because you cannot be sustainable if every year you're trying to figure out how you're going to do what you're going to do, and even if you're going to do it. So we really have to look at the narrative around the nonprofit community, particularly, and I think this has really just started to blossom out of COVID, when we understood how businesses were hit and the type of support and resources that business really need. So this is really just over the last 5 years that we really saw a strong influx of support for the small business community, but we still need to change that narrative. Speaking about narratives, we're getting close to our end. So what I want to say, if you could leave the audience, funders, policymakers, partners, and the small business community that has joined us with one takeaway on how to improve services to the veteran entrepreneur community or to our ecosystem, what would it be? Charlotte, I'm going to start with you. Now let the guys break up the.
Well, probably no surprise. I'm just going to reiterate and emphasize what I've already stated of, we don't necessarily need a ton more of point solutions. So, but if there's something innovative you can bring to market, or if there's a new way that you want to serve the veteran community, find a partner that can help you and that already has the market reach and awareness, and focus on collaboration and partnership rather than adding a new service and creating more confusion and fragmentation in an already really noisy and crowded space. So collaboration is always the winner. And then VR, I do want to give a shameless plug. I sit on the board of directors for Service First Foundation, which is a foundation that runs an annual pitch competition, and we award $100,000 grand prize. It is non-dilutive, no strings attached, just a cash grant for veteran-owned businesses. There are some eligibility requirements around the types of businesses, but anybody listening, it's a great opportunity to gain some early traction for an early stage company before you're eligible for traditional loans or some of the more restrictive forms of capital. So don't overlook the opportunity to also partner on, those earlier stage non-dilutive forms of capital that can help bridge the gap until businesses can apply for SBA loans or some of the other more conventional opportunities.
So guys, we've only got about a minute left. So a 30-second plug. What would be your takeaway, Gus? What would you tell them?
I would say partnerships and support innovative partnerships. Then for the audience, if you are a small business owner, veteran in Texas, please connect with People Fund. If you are anywhere in the country, go to Veteran Loan Fund. We have a network of CDFIs and veteran service organizations that can help you grow or start your business.
Thank you, guys. Matt?
Let everybody know that you're a vet. If you're a veteran business owner, let everybody know that. There's a lot of vets are not always eager to identify that they're a vet. Not that they're ashamed of it, but sometimes they don't want to take something away from a brother or sister who they feel is paid a more significant price than they have, or they don't want to be perceived as less than because they provide real value to their customers and they don't want to be viewed as getting something because of their service. They're still a great business owner. And I think a lot of people recognize and understand that they want to thank you for that service. But and if you're a buyer or you're on the other side of the different stakeholders you mentioned, VR, talk to your suppliers, talk to folks and find out. You may have a lot more folks that are vets than you realize that you're working with. And then finally, buy a veteran. I mean, anybody who can, let's try to make a proactive choice to buy from veterans. And so we as veteran community should buy from each other.
My takeaway would be get connected. So we want to thank AEO for this amazing opportunity to have this engaging conversation. I want to thank all of our panelists, Matthew, Charlotte, Gus, for sharing your information. And I want to turn it over to AEO for the final closing remarks.
Thank you so much, VR, and thank you all for such an incredible discussion. We really appreciate all of the resources and insights you left us with. We'll be sure to share many of those resources in our recap email shortly with all of the attendees. And again, just a big thanks for sharing your expertise and perspectives on the vital role that entrepreneurs play in shaping our economy. And on behalf of AEO, I also want to extend our gratitude to all of you for joining us and for contributing to this conversation. As our panelists reminded us, we know we all have a role in creating opportunity for veteran entrepreneurs. And before we wrap up, I'd like to invite you all to our upcoming Equity and Opportunity for All webinar on November 18th, when we'll celebrate the contributions of Native entrepreneurs in honor of Native American Heritage Month. So we'll be in touch with more in a recap email, and thank you again for being with us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.